Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's meeting of the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means, Senate Committee on Finance, Joint Subcommittees on Public Safety, Natural Resources, and Transportation. Would the committee secretary please call the roll?
Senators Nguyen. Here. Titus. Here. Taylor. Assembly members Anderson. Present. Brown May. Here. Dickman. Here. Hibbets. Here. Mosca. Here. And Chair Watts.
I am here, thank you. Please mark Chair Taylor present when she arrives. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We will be closing several budgets within the Office of the Military and the Department of Veterans Services. Before we get started, if you would like to provide any public comment, we will have a public comment period at the end of today's meeting. You can provide public comment in person. We'll give you up to 2 minutes. And you can also call in by phone. The number to call in can be found on our committee agenda, which is also posted on the Nevada Legislature's website. So with that, we are going to go ahead and begin our budget closings. We are starting with the Office of the Military. And I will turn it over to Mr. Miller to walk us through the closing document.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair and members of the subcommittee. My name is Daniel Miller from the LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. I will be covering the closing recommendations for budget accounts within the Office of the Military, which includes the Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. There are 10 budget accounts on the agenda for the Office of the Military today. 3 budget accounts have previously been heard by the subcommittee, and 7 are considered to be staff closed. The first budget on the agenda today is budget account 1013673, the Division of Emergency Management, and begins on page 3 of your packet. There are 3 major closing issues in the Division of Emergency Management. Major issue 1 begins on page 3. The recommendation, the governor recommends the transfer of the Division of Emergency Management, inclusive of the Office of Homeland Security, from the Office of the Military to the Office of the Governor, and additional general fund appropriations of $37,591 in each year of the 2025-27 biennium for the Division of Human Resource Management costs as a result of the transfer. According to the agency, aligning the Division of Emergency Management under the Office of the Governor would improve the timeliness and effectiveness of decision-making by ensuring that the governor has access to the most current and relevant information available in emergency situations. In order to execute the transfer of the Division of Emergency Management to the Office of the Governor, a bill draft request has been submitted by the Governor's Finance Office for consideration to make statutory adjustments to align the Division of Emergency Management within the Office of the Governor. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend the approval of the Governor's recommendation to transfer the Division of Emergency Management, inclusive of the Office of Homeland Security, to the Office of the Governor, contingent upon passage and approval of enabling legislation and additional general fund appropriations of $37,591 in each year of the 2025-27 biennium for costs as a result of the transfer?
Thank you. Members, any questions on this item? Seeing none, I would accept a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I move for the approval of this decision unit as read by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Brown May, a second from Senator Nguyen. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. Our second major issue begins on page 4. The governor recommends general fund appropriations of $95,772 in fiscal year 26 and $108,327 in fiscal year 2027 to fund 1 new loan officer position and associated expenses to establish and manage the Safeguarding Tomorrow through Ongoing Risk Mitigation Act revolving loan fund program. According to the agency, the Safeguarding Tomorrow through Ongoing Risk Mitigation Act, also known as the STORM Act, revolving loan fund program, would utilize a capitalization grant from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, also known as FEMA, to establish a revolving loan fund, which would provide low-interest loans to local governments for hazard mitigation. This decision unit is contingent upon the passage and approval of Senate Bill 39, which would create the Nevada Hazard Mitigation Revolving Loan Account to receive and disperse grant funding. If FEMA approves a capitalization grant, the division would be required to provide a 10% match for up to the total amount awarded. However, the governor's recommended budget does not include general fund appropriations to serve as matching funds for this program. The amount of capitalization grant funding that might be awarded in the future at this time is unknown. Following the March 27th, 2025 budget hearing, the agency provided additional details about the timeline of the program if enabling legislation is enacted to establish the revolving loan account and the new position is approved. The new position and the requirements of the program are estimated to be completed by the end of August 2026. Following that, the agency would accept proposals from rural communities from November to December of 2026 and would apply for the capitalization grant by January of 2027. And if awarded the funding, it would seek the 10% required matching funds through a request to either the Interim Finance Committee for an allocation from the contingency account or through legislation during the 84th legislative session. Finally, upon the deposit of federal and state funding into the Nevada Hazard Mitigation Revolving Loan Account, the agency would initiate the administration of loans no later than the start of fiscal year 2028. The initial $500 million provided by FEMA for this program is anticipated to be available through the end of federal fiscal year 2026 or September 30th of 2026. At this time, it is unclear whether any of the initial funds will be available after September 30th, 2026, or if additional funding will be made available for the program. Since the agency's timeline indicates that it will apply for the capitalization grant in January of 2027, it is unclear if the agency would be able to apply for and receive an award from FEMA. If the application for a capitalization grant is unsuccessful or matching funds are not made available, the agency would seek to either reclassify the loan officer position or pursue other application for capitalization grants. The governor's recommendation includes general fund appropriations of $3,091 in fiscal year 2026 and $4,121 in fiscal year 2027 for 300 square feet of additional office space at the Emergency Operations Center in Carson City. However, the agency would not incur additional rent costs if this position is approved. Fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to remove the additional rent costs associated with the new loan officer position, resulting in a decrease of general fund appropriations of $3,091 in fiscal year 26 and $4,121 in fiscal year 2027. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the governor's recommendation, inclusive of the noted technical adjustment to remove additional rent cost, of general fund appropriations of $92,681 in fiscal year 2026 and $104,206 in fiscal year 2027 to fund one new loan officer position and associated expenses to establish and manage the Safeguarding Tomorrow through Ongoing Risk Mitigation Act Revolving Loan Fund Program, contingent upon the passage and approval of SB 39 or other enabling legislation.
Thank you. Members, any questions or discussion on this issue? Before I accept a motion, I just want to note that, I think that we want to try and secure additional funding whenever possible. Obviously, given the budget situation, I think it would definitely be our preference that we try and pursue some of the matching funds during the next legislative session, but we also are aware of this timeline and essentially deadline that we need to meet with applying for the federal FEMA dollars. And I think that is kind of the biggest issue is we want to make sure that we can act as quickly as possible in order to apply for these funds while they're currently authorized and not end up in a situation where we have even more uncertainty about the availability of federal funds in the future. So, I do have a little bit of comfort knowing that if we do have a match requirement, that would come up not in fiscal year 2026, but in our fiscal year 2027, when we have a little bit more breathing room in our budget. So, based on all of that, I'll accept a motion from Assemblymember Brown May.
Thank you, Chair. Given the uncertainty of the capitalization grant, as you just stated, from the Federal Emergency Management Agency being authorized beyond federal fiscal year 2026, I move to recommend approval of the governor's recommendation, inclusive of the noted technical adjustment to remove additional rent costs of general fund appropriations of $92,681 in fiscal year 2026 and $104,206 in fiscal year 2027 to fund one new contract position and associated expenses instead of a new state loan officer position to establish and manage the Safeguarding Tomorrow through Ongoing Risk Mitigation Act revolving loan fund program, contingent upon the passage and approval of Senate Bill 39 or other enabling legislation.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Again, I just want to note that I think with going with a contract position, our hope is that we can get someone on board as quickly as possible to pursue this opportunity and hopefully get that application in before the end of federal fiscal year 2026. And then additionally, if we are unsuccessful, then we can phase out that position. If we are successful, then we can look at building a permanent position into the budget when the next legislative session reconvenes. So, seeing no other discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. Our third major closing issue begins on page 7. The governor recommends reclassifying the classified deputy administrator position to an unclassified deputy administrator position, resulting in reductions of $8,766 in fiscal year 2026 and $15,657 in fiscal year 2027. According to the agency, reclassifying the classified deputy administrator position to an unclassified deputy administrator position would more accurately reflect the 24/7 demands of leading the Division of Emergency Management. The agency states the role of the deputy administrator involves coordinating statewide homeland security and emergency management programs, filling in for the division administrator when needed, and liaising with federal, state, local, and tribal agencies. The governor's recommendation reflects cost reductions due to the reclassification of the position. However, the unclassified position, as reflected in the executive budget, does not include Public Employees Retirement System, or PERS, contributions, which would increase the cost of the decision unit. Instead of reflecting a cost savings with the conversion to an unclassified position, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to include the cost of the PERS contributions for this position, resulting in an increase of $25,467 in each year of the 2025-27 biennium. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the governor's recommendation, inclusive of the noted technical adjustment, to include the cost of PERS contributions of $16,701 in fiscal year 2026 and $9,810 in fiscal year 2027 to reclassify the classified deputy administrator position to an unclassified deputy administrator position? Decisions pertaining to unclassified salaries will be determined by the money committees when the pay bill is considered. Staff requests authority to make any technical adjustments subsequently required.
Thank you. Members, any questions on this item? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
Thank you. I move to approve this decision unit, including any technical adjustments as read by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Brown May, a second from Senator Wynn. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. Beginning on page 8, there are 15 other closing items through page 10, and a noted technical adjustment on other item 15. Fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 through 14 be closed as recommended by the governor, and other closing item 15 be closed with the noted technical adjustment. Fiscal staff requests authority to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you. Members, any questions? I'll accept a motion.
Thank you. I move approval of this decision unit as read by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Brown May, a second from Senator Nguyen. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. We'll be moving on to our second budget account, 1013675 for the Office of Homeland Security. There's one major issue in this budget account beginning on page 11. The governor recommends the transfer of general fund appropriations of $147,523 in fiscal year 2026 and $145,457 in fiscal year 2027 to transfer the unclassified analyst supervisor, Nevada Analytical Information Center, or NAIC manager position and associated costs from the Homeland Security budget account to the Department of Public Safety's Investigation Division budget account, 3743. Since 2015, the position has acted as the manager of the Nevada Threat Analysis Center. In this role, the position manages all administrative and operational functions, including grants management, the Fusion Liaison Officer Program, the Critical Infrastructure and Key Resources Program, and the Privacy, Civil Rights, and Civil Liberties Program. During the March 27, 2025 budget hearing, the agency stated that the position supervises Department of Public Safety staff in the Nevada Threat Analysis Center and is directly supervised by the Department of Public Safety's Director of the Center. The agency indicated that transferring the position would better align the position within the organizational structure of the Department of Public Safety and would simplify operations. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the transfer of general fund appropriations of $147,523 in fiscal year 26 and $145,457 in fiscal year 2027 to transfer one unclassified analyst supervisor NAIC manager position from the Homeland Security budget account to the Department of Public Safety's Investigation Division budget account as recommended by the governor?
Thank you. Members, any questions? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
I move to approve this decision unit as read by staff.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Brown May, a second from Senator Nguyen. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. Beginning on page 13, there are 4 other closing items with a noted technical adjustment on other item 4. Fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 through 3 be closed as recommended by the governor, and other closing item 4 be closed with the noted technical adjustment. Fiscal staff requests authority to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Members, any questions? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
I move to approve this decision unit, including any technical adjustments necessary as read by staff.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Brown May, a second from Senator Nguyen. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. We'll now be moving on to our third budget account, 1013650 for the Office of the Military. This budget account begins on page 15 and has 3 major closing issues. The first major closing issue begins on page 15 for 2 new unclassified positions for the psychological health team. The governor recommends general fund appropriations of $127,879 in fiscal year 2026 and $304,324 in fiscal year 2027 to add 1 new unclassified psychological health clinical manager position and 1 new unclassified psychological health manager position to increase the mental health support for uniformed personnel and their families. The office's psychological health team currently consists of 2 psychological health manager positions, 1 each in northern and southern Nevada, that support approximately 4,400 uniformed personnel in the Nevada National Guard and their families. The psychological health clinical manager position would be a new unclassified position type and would provide clinical oversight and administrative supervision of the existing psychological health team. The new position would be located at the Joint Force Headquarters to support service members in the Carson City area and have direct access to leadership. The psychological health manager position would provide preventative, remedial, and support services to improve and sustain the psychological health of members and their families. This position would be located at the North Las Vegas Readiness Center. The office states this position and the two existing psychological health manager positions would be more appropriately referred to as psychological health therapist positions, since the positions have client lists and do not close cases. The title change for the unclassified psychological health manager positions and the salaries for all unclassified positions will be determined by the money committees when the pay bill is considered. Lastly, the additional positions would increase the available mental health network, leading to reduced wait times for mental health services for Nevada National Guard members and their families. The governor recommends the psychological health clinical manager position start in July of 2026. However, as noted in the FTE summary at the top of this document, the position is included in the FY 2026 FTE count. Fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to remove one position from the fiscal year 2026 FTE count, with a corresponding decrease in general fund appropriations of $899 in fiscal year 2026. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the governor's recommendation for general fund appropriations of $126,980 in fiscal year 2026 and $304,324 in fiscal year 2027, inclusive of the noted technical adjustment to remove one position from the FY 2026 FTE count to fund one new unclassified psychological health manager position and one psychological health clinical manager position? Decisions pertaining to the unclassified salaries and titles will be determined by the money committees when the pay bill is considered. Staff requests authority to make any technical adjustments subsequently required.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Members, any questions? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
I move for the approval of this decision unit, including authority to make any technical adjustments as read by staff.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Brown May, a second from Senator Nguyen. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division, for the record. Moving on to major issue number 2, which is a change in funding source for one IT professional position, and begins on page 17. The governor recommends general fund appropriations of $119,865 in fiscal year 2026 and $124,764 in fiscal year 2027, with a corresponding reduction of Federal Department of Defense funds to change the funding source for one IT professional position. The office states that the Department of Defense funds supporting the Army Distributive Learning Program, which funds 3 positions, have steadily decreased. The office indicates federal funding has continued to be reallocated to different programs at the federal level, leading to the reduction in funding provided to the state for this program. The IT professional position is responsible for maintaining the network, computers, and audiovisual equipment of 4 classrooms throughout the state. The classrooms are used by the Nevada National Guard members for various testing and training to ensure the readiness of members. During the March 27, 2025 budget hearing, the office indicated it anticipates further federal funding reductions for Army National Guard programs, but the potential impact to the Army Distributive Learning Program at this time is unknown. The governor's recommendation includes general fund appropriations of $119,865 in fiscal year 2026 and $124,764 in fiscal year 2027, with a corresponding reduction of Federal Department of Defense funds to change the funding source for the IT professional position. However, the total salary and benefits of the position are $123,301 in fiscal year 2026 and $127,610 in fiscal year 2027. Fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to align the funding in this decision unit with the total cost of this position, resulting in increased general fund appropriations of $3,436 in fiscal year 2026 and $2,846 in fiscal year 2027, with a corresponding reduction of Federal Department of Defense funds. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the governor's recommendation, inclusive of the noted technical adjustment, to align funding in this decision unit with the total cost of the position for general fund appropriations of $123,301 in fiscal year 2026 and $127,610 in fiscal year 2027, with a corresponding reduction of Federal Department of Defense funds to change the funding source to continue one existing IT professional position?
Thank you. Members, any questions on this item? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
I move approval of this decision unit as read by staff.
A motion from Assemblymember Brown May, a second from Senator Nguyen. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. Moving on to our third major issue, beginning on page 18, is the Battle-Born Youth Challenge Program reductions. The governor recommends reductions of $786,026 in fiscal year 2026 and $800,044 in fiscal year 2027 to eliminate 11 positions in fiscal year 2026 and to restore 2 of those 11 positions in fiscal year 2027 associated with the Battle-Born Youth Challenge Program. Just to note, the office projects it will enroll 120 students in fiscal year 2026 and 130 students in fiscal year 2027. Despite the projected increase in student enrollment for the 25-27 biennium, the governor recommends eliminating 11 vacant positions in fiscal year 2026, including 6 cadre team leader positions, 4 food service cook positions, and the unclassified youth challenge program deputy administrator approved by the 82nd legislature. The recommendation includes the reinstatement of 2 cadre team leader positions in fiscal year 2027, which the agency indicates is due to projected higher enrollment in fiscal year 2027. The office confirmed that all positions recommended to be eliminated are vacant and not needed with the current class size, and there would be no impact to the program due to the eliminations. Following the March 27, 2025 budget hearing, the office clarified the number of staff the office can hire for the Battle-Born Youth Challenge Program is determined by the funding the office is appropriated from Congress. The Battle-Born Youth Challenge Program is supported by 75% federal funds from the Federal National Guard Bureau and a 25% state match. Current federal funding is not sufficient to support an additional 7 vacant positions for the Battle-Born Youth Challenge Program, and the office has stopped recruitment efforts for these positions because federal funding is not anticipated to increase in order to fund the positions which are not included in this decision unit. The 7 positions can be seen on the table on page 19. Since the office does not anticipate federal funding would increase to support 7 vacant positions at this time, the subcommittee may wish to consider recommending elimination of the 7 positions in the 25 through 27 biennium. The office concurs that due to the anticipated lack of federal funds for the positions, the general fund appropriations supporting the positions are not needed, but notes that keeping the positions would provide programmatic flexibility and program growth in the event Congress increases funding. If the subcommittee were to eliminate the positions, it would result in additional savings of $669,824 in fiscal year 2026 and $690,356 in fiscal year 2027. Lastly, due to a technical issue with the decision unit, the fiscal year 2026 savings are understated by $164,452 as the elimination of the salary and benefits in fiscal year 2026 for the 2 positions recommended to be reinstated in fiscal year 2027 was not properly included in the decision unit. Fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to eliminate the salary and benefits in fiscal year 2026 for 2 cadre team leader positions, resulting in savings of $164,452 in fiscal year 2026. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the governor's recommendation, inclusive of the noted technical adjustments, to eliminate the salary and benefit costs in fiscal year 2026 for 2 positions for total reductions of $950,478 in fiscal year 2026 and $800,044 in fiscal year 2027 to eliminate 11 positions in fiscal year 2026 and to restore 2 of the 11 positions in fiscal year 2027 associated with the Battle-Born Youth Challenge Program? And does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval to eliminate 7 additional vacant positions in the Battle-Born Youth Challenge Program that are not currently supported by federal funding, resulting in additional savings of $669,824 in fiscal year 2026 and $690,356 in fiscal year 2027?
Thank you. Members, any questions on this item? So before I go to a motion, I just want to note, with the 7 additional vacant positions, again, particularly with our budgetary issues and the federal funding outlook at this time, I think that it's probably best that we eliminate those positions. However, because there is general fund that supports this program and this budget, if that landscape were to change, I would ask that, and there is the opportunity to increase staffing, I would ask the Department of the Military to let us know and pursue a potential work program so that we can get those positions reinstated. So, with that, I'll turn it over to Assemblymember Brown May for a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I move to recommend approval of the governor's recommendation inclusive of the noted technical adjustments, as well as the approval to eliminate 7 additional vacant positions as read by staff.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Brown May. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second from Senator Wynn. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. There are 8 other closing items in this budget account between pages 20 and 21 with noted technical adjustments and other item 6, other item 7, and other item 8. Fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 through 5 be closed as recommended by the governor, and other closing items 6, 7, and 8 be closed with the noted technical adjustments. Fiscal staff requests authority to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
All right, thank you. Members, any questions? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I move that we follow staff's recommendations along with giving them the authority to make the technical adjustments as necessary.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Vice Chair Taylor. I have a second from Assemblymember Brown May. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. I will now present budget accounts that the subcommittee has not previously heard for the Office of the Military, which staff are responsible to develop closing recommendations for. I will briefly pause after the presentation of all budget accounts to allow for questions. When I present the last budget in this group, the chair may wish to ask for a single motion for closing consideration of all budgets for which fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations. Budget account 101-3674, Emergency Management Assistance Grants on page 23. Budget account 101-3655, Military Emergency Operations Center on page 25. Budget account 101-3658, Military State Active Duty on page 27. Budget account 101-3652, Office of the Military Adjutant General Special Armory account on page 29. Budget account 101-3653, Office of the Military National Guard Benefits on page 31. And budget account 101-3654, Office of the Military Patriot Relief Fund on page 33. And that will be it for the staff closed recommendation budget accounts.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Members, are there any questions on any of the staff closed budgets? Seeing none, I will turn it back over to Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel Miller, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. As previously noted, fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations for the following budget accounts. To assist with the closing, fiscal staff has identified the budget accounts that are recommended to be closed as recommended by the governor, along with identified technical adjustments that are recommended below. Fiscal staff recommends the following budget accounts be closed as recommended by the governor, with the technical adjustments noted, and requests authority for staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary. Budget account 101-3674, Emergency Management Assistant Grants. Budget account 101-3655, Military Emergency Operations Center, with the inclusion of language in the Authorizations Act to provide that the funds in this budget account are restricted for the uses specified and unexpended funds may be carried forward to the next fiscal year. Budget account 101-3658, Office of the Military State Active Duty, including technical adjustments to include $201,867 of previously authorized American Rescue Plan Act Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Funds in fiscal year 2026 that are projected to be balanced forward at the end of fiscal year 2025, and the inclusion of language in the Appropriations Act to allow the Adjutant General to request an advance from the State General Fund of not more than $50,000 per activation if the Nevada National Guard is ordered to active duty by the governor and the Adjutant General determines expenditures will be required. Budget account 101-3652, Office of the Military Adjutant General's Special Armory account. Budget account 101-3653, Office of the Military National Guard Benefits, with the inclusion of language in the Appropriations Act to allow general fund appropriations in this budget account to be transferred within the same budget account from one fiscal year to the other with the approval of the Interim Finance Committee upon recommendation of the Governor, and budget account 1013654, Office of the Military Patriot Relief Fund.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Members, any questions? All right, seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the listed budgets be closed as recommended by staff and that they have authority to make any technical adjustments as necessary.
Got a motion from Chair Taylor, second from Assemblymember Brown May. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. And I believe that concludes our closings for the Office of the Military. Thank you very much, Mr. Miller. We'll be in a brief recess while we have a staff rotation. All right, the joint committees will come back to order, and we will begin going through the closings for the Department of Veterans Services. Take it away.
Thank you, Chair Watts. For the record, Alex Hart's Fiscal Analysis Division. We're closing 3 budgets this morning. The first one begins on page 37. This is the Department of Veterans Services budget account 2560. There are 4 major closing issues. The first major closing issue is the Governor recommended general fund appropriations of $87,890 in fiscal year 26 and $114,410 in fiscal year 27 to fund the personnel and associated operating costs of a new unclassified position whose primary responsibility would be for community partnerships, donor development. On March 18th, the Governor's Finance Office transmitted budget amendment to revise the decision unit to recommend general fund appropriations of $68,214 in fiscal year 26 and $88,520 in fiscal year 27 to fund the personnel and associated operating costs of a classified veteran service officer position in lieu of the unclassified program development coordinator position. During the budget hearing, the agency explained the intent behind the budget amendment and that it was preferred to have the Veteran Services Officer position at this time while the unclassified Program Development Coordinator position concept was still under development. Budget Amendment A255322560, if accepted, would reduce budgeted general fund appropriations by $19,676 in fiscal year 26 and $22,890 in fiscal year 27, or $42,566 over the 2025-27 biennium. The decision for the subcommittee this morning is, does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of general fund appropriations of $68,214 in fiscal year 26 and $88,520 in fiscal year 2027 as recommended by the Governor in Budget Amendment A255322560 for the cost of 1 new Veteran Service Officer position in replace of the proposed unclassified Program Development Coordinator.
Thank you, Mr. Hartz. Members, any questions? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I move that we accept the recommendations as read by staff.
I have a motion from Chair Taylor, a second from Assemblymember Brown May. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
The next major closing issue begins on page 39. The governor recommends general fund appropriations totaling $186,701 over the 2025-27 biennium to fund the salary, benefits, and operating costs of a new Management Analyst 3 position. The position is recommended to current and future financial management capabilities and is budgeted to begin October 1st, 2025. During the hearing, the department indicated that the new position would be responsible for all aspects of grants management, to include identifying appropriate notices of funding opportunities and leading a multidisciplinary grant team, and such as members of the healthcare services, benefits, finance, information technology, and human resources, and other members as applicable. Additionally, the position would manage complex requests for proposal by ensuring contract compliance with governing guidelines. The position is also responsible for internal oversight of all formal solicitations and to include the management company providing operational management services to the Northern Nevada State Veterans Home. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of one new Management Analyst 3 position funded with general fund appropriations of $81,006 in fiscal year 2026 and $105,695 in fiscal year 27 for the personnel and operating costs of one new position as recommended by the governor?
Thank you. Members, any questions? Seeing none, I will accept a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the subcommittee accept the recommendation as read by staff.
I have a motion from Chair Taylor, a second from Assemblymember Brown May. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair Watts. The next major issue begins on page 41. This is major issue number 3. The executive budget recommends opioid settlement funds transferred from the Fund for a Resilient Nevada totaling $1.4 million over the 2025-27 biennium to fund the costs of contract treatment services, temporary staff, operating supplies, and in-state travel for a new program to provide treatment services to veterans with opioid and other substance abuse disorders, primarily targeting veterans who are ineligible for services through the federal TRICARE system. In follow-up information requested during the budget hearing, the department indicated how this proposed request fits with the overall opioid grant settlement goals. And on page 42, you will see that there were 3 goals laid out, which this request by the governor fulfills. Prevent the misuse of opioids through preventing the misuse of opioids in the veteran community, to include their families and guardians. Reduce harm related to opioid use through reducing suicide rates year over year as it relates to opioid addiction among veterans. And provide behavioral health treatment through increasing awareness among the veteran community and their family and guardians about opioid addiction, their options to seeking treatment, care, and support, and linking veterans and family members and guardians to licensed counseling and therapy. It was also pointed out that individuals who serve in the military have been identified as a high-risk population through the 2022-27 5-year opioid needs assessment in the statewide plan. The decision for the subcommittee is, does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the transfer of $1.4 million in Fund for a Resilient Nevada opioid settlement funding over the 2025-27 biennium to the department for treatment services, staffing, equipment and supplies, assessment and evaluation, and program staff travel as recommended by the governor?
Thank you. Members, any questions? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the subcommittee accept the recommendation as read by staff.
I have a motion from Chair Taylor, a second from Assemblymember Brown May. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair Watts. The last major closing issue for this budget begins on the bottom of page 42 and the top of 43. The executive budget includes, in the legislature's Money Committee's review, 3 of the department's 11 budget accounts. This budget account, the Southern Nevada State Veterans Home Budget Account, and the Northern Nevada State Veterans Home Budget Account. However, the department also funds operating costs through the gift account for veterans, which is NRS 417.115, a non-executive budget, i.e. a budget that is not included in the executive budget, which it utilizes to fund temporary and ongoing operating costs, including staffing as noting under major issues 1 and 3. As a result, the department's operating revenues and expenditures are not as transparent as they could be, which can limit the Money Committee's understanding of the department's staffing and operating needs and the ability to serve Nevada's veterans and their families. This subcommittee will remember there was discussion during the budget hearing in which the department indicated that they often have temporary staff who do not wish to become state employees and prefer to remain temporary staff. The department also indicated that the use of the gift account was typically used for purposes of what was referred to as proof of concept or demonstrating the ability for a project to work, subsequently that they would seek general fund appropriations. In follow-up to the hearing, the department was asked to provide responses improving the amount of detail, including the annual reports it submits, as well as the transfer of DMV license plate fee revenues to this account to fund the costs of the current contract veteran service officer positions, regardless of whether they remain temporary employees or became state employees. In response, the department did not specifically address improving the annual reporting on the use of the gift account, however, and provided a response regarding improving transparency by transferring DMV license plate fee revenues used to support temporary positions to this budget account. The department indicated that there were concerns with regard to the transfer in terms of limiting the department's flexibility. Since the department did not address improved reporting and its response that revenues in the gift account for veterans should not be transferred to any of its other budgets, even to support the same operating costs, fiscal staff recommends that to improve transparency, at a minimum, the subcommittee consider recommending that fiscal staff include this issue in its review of the department's budgets for the 2027-29 biennium, and that it consider recommending the issuance of a letter of intent for the 2025-27 biennium, directing the department to provide more detailed annual reporting on its use of the gift account for veterans. The decision for the subcommittee is, does the subcommittee wish to recommend that fiscal staff be directed to include the department's use of the gift account for veterans for ongoing and temporary costs as a budget issue to be presented to the 84th, or the 2027 Legislature's Money Committees, and recommend the issuance of a letter of intent directing the department to provide more specific programmatic and cost detail information in its annual reporting to the Interim Finance Committee pursuant to NRS 417.115 subsection 6.
Thank you, Mr. Hartz. Members, any questions? Before I turn it over for a motion, I just want to make clear that while we do have questions about this, this is, not to in any way say that we think that the department is doing anything inappropriate with this account. We understand also that some folks like to work under these more flexible contract arrangements. But it is something that we just want to make sure that we keep an eye on. I think it's helpful for everybody, both for the department, for the legislature, and members of the public, to have some additional idea about some of the programs and initiatives that are being funded out of that account. We have looked at some of the reports that have been provided, so I think the combination of fiscal staff making sure that this is something that the next legislature is aware of, as well as making sure that we just get a little bit more information on some of the initiatives that are being funded through that account, will help us kind of keep tabs on this. And I will just say that One concern that we do have, and we just want to make sure that we're on the same page, is that if there are folks that are in some of these long-term contract positions that are interested in becoming employees of the state, I think it's our position that we want to make sure that we find a way to facilitate that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chair Taylor for a motion.
Thank you, Chair. And with that being said, I move that the subcommittee accept the recommendation as read by staff.
I have a motion from Chair Taylor, a second from Assemblymember Brown May. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair Watts. On page 46, there were 6 other closing items, including item number 6, which is $1.8 million in general fund appropriations over the biennium in the agency's base budget to continue the adoptive vet dental program. Fiscal staff recommends the subcommittee recommend approval of the other closing items as recommended by the governor and requests authority to make technical adjustments as needed.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the subcommittee accept the recommendation from staff, as well as giving them authority to make any technical adjustments necessary.
I have a motion from Chair Taylor, a second from Assemblymember Brown May. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair Watts. For the record, Alex Hartz. The second budget account, the Southern Nevada Veterans Home account, begins on page 49 of the closing packet. There are no major issues. There are 26 other closing items. Fiscal staff would point out item number 25, which is the inclusion of a new Personnel Office Analyst 1 position, which is funded with patient collection revenues. And then other item number 26, a new Management Analyst position, which was established in fiscal year 2025, but by oversight, it was not included in the budget. On March 18th, 2025, the Governor's Finance Office submitted Budget Amendment A255-912561 to continue the Management Analyst 3 position funded with VA per diem reimbursement revenues totaling $127,319 in fiscal year 26 and $131,755 in 27. Fiscal staff recommends that other closing items 1 through 25 be closed as recommended by the Governor. Fiscal staff also recommends that other closing item, number 26, Budget Amendment A255-912561 be recommended for approval and requests authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the subcommittee accept the recommendations as read by staff and additionally give them authority to make any technical adjustments necessary.
I have a motion from Chair Taylor, a second from Assemblymember Brown May. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair Watts. The last budget begins on page 53. This is the Northern Nevada Veterans Home account. There are no major closing issues. There are 4 other closing items. Fiscal staff recommends the other closing items be closed as recommended by the Governor and requests authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you very much. Okay, members, last chance for questions. Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the subcommittee accept the recommendations as read by staff and to make any technical adjustments necessary.
I've got a motion from Chair Taylor, second from Assemblymember Brown May. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, members, thank you very much. That concludes our budget closings for the day. We'll move on to the last item on our agenda, which is public comment. If anyone would like to make public comment, either here in Carson City or down in Las Vegas, feel free to come forward. Seeing nobody coming forward at this time, AVH, would anyone like to provide public comment by phone?
Thank you, Chair. The public lines are open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
Thank you. With that, that concludes our business for today. This meeting is adjourned.